let's dive in. Welcome. Firstly, I do want to give a huge shout out to Gatheround and Marcy for making this happen. About a month ago, I got the opportunity to just check out this platform, and I was like, this is everything I've ever wanted from online meetings. And they let me do this talk. So today, Gatheround has a ton of cool features, and we're going to be trying to make use of them. But I am still a newbie, so Marcy's going to tag in and interrupt me and help me when I do something wrong. But I'm so excited to chat with you today. I have such a deep love for performance reviews, and I really recognize that that love is not always shared. I'm super fortunate that I'm super fortunate about, my managers and teams have been really candid with me about their feelings on performance reviews. Maybe not kind, but definitely candid. So today I really want to reframe some of our thoughts about performance reviews, offer a better approach, and give some tips to help you, no matter your role, really harness performance feedback and really, offer a better way to do reviews and hopefully stop dreading them. So here is just a quick little bit about me if we haven't met yet. I'm casually into aerial fitness. I will talk to you about circusy things. I love dogs and plants and brunch. A healthy obsession with people ops. I've been in this career for a little over a decade. It was a very intentional move. I love the people that fell into it, just the opposite side of the coin over here. And then I really love performance reviews. We already talked about it. And I want your work to be better. We spend a lot of time at work. So really it just, shouldn't suck so much. Cool. So we'll start here. Now that you know a bit about me, I want to learn a little bit about you. Marcy, Marcy, I never pressed play. Oh man. Okay. We're going to do a quick 15-second reflection. And then I want you to think about why you or your team really dread performance reviews. Don't be coy. Don't be shy. There is no wrong answer. Give it to me straight. Alexandra, tell me what you dread about performance reviews.
I think the thing that I dread the most is that I walk into a performance review feeling prepared for what I think is going to come up. And I've got all my talking points ready for the things that I think are going to come up as opposed to my performance. And then it turns out that my manager has a completely different set of feedback that I am not prepared for and all of my talking points. And then I'm just sitting there like completely unprepared to address the feedback.
Oh, that's tough. Oh. Once you've done share, yeah, nice. Such a cool platform. Valerie, tell me what you hate about performance reviews or dread.
Yes. So I think the biggest thing is we all, whether we have done it before or not, feel uncomfortable with negative feedback or constructive feedback. It's always going to be a part of it. And we're all just so uncomfortable when we're either giving it to someone or receiving it. So I'd say that's probably the biggest thing.
Oh my gosh. And what do? You're an HR coordinator.
Yes, I'm an HR coordinator. And so I'm administering these uncomfortable conversations pretty much. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you for joining today. Next up.
Hey, Kim.
Hi, Sam.
I will share, I feel like on behalf of so many employees for my clients, but it also was something that resonated with me when I was an employee. Is just this idea of like, we have no idea what we're being measured on. Like our objectives aren't clear. There's no follow-up in one-on-ones regularly. Like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be performing on. And I have all these reasons for like business slowdown or the strategy change or like whatever. And so I don't actually know what I'm going to be evaluated on. And so there's that anxiety that comes into these performance reviews to just be like, how is this going to go? I don't know because I don't know how to benchmark myself.
Gosh, everyone is kind of hearing like, I dread surprises in reviews. Maybe that resonates a little bit. Danny.
Hi, Kim. I hate that the things that are measured don't seem practical. Like they're not a tangible thing I can do other than just like, hey, perform more. And I feel like the conversations are centered around things that are, do your job better. That's just not a helpful conversation. So even if I am expecting it and I know what it's about, it's like, this is not going to be something that I have practical steps to take forward.
Just do better, Danny. Gosh.
I know. Get good, noob.
Oh my gosh. Amazing. Thank you so much. We've got about 40 seconds and I see 3, 2, 1. Valerie, give it to me.
Hey all. So a little bit different take. As an organizer, I think what I dread is trying to get manager buy-in. And it does not matter how well I try to document these things or make it easy for them or provide the questions ahead of time so there are mitigated surprises. Invariably, having that manager buy-in is so integral. And what I'm fighting with currently we're just not going to do it. We want the employee feedback. Yeah, I'm not going to self-reflect. And it's been hard.
Yeah, I bet. Amazing. Thank you so much. Let's see. I think we can go back to the presentation now. Shout out to everyone for staying under 45 seconds. Yeah, all of those reasons are valid. Everything is true. And your team hates them too. I know there's some ICs and individual contributors in here. Teams dread performance reviews. They are a lot of work. They are not always a ton of value. And frankly, folks are not into this idea of being judged right now. The last few years have been wild. And frankly, it's a little scary out there. I know that there have been some CEOs who have done performance-based terminations when really it should have been a layoff because they overhired. So, while you're doing all of this and building your performance review process, go ahead and expect that some of these conversations are going to wind up on social media. I am so pumped about everything that Gen Z is bringing to our profession and bringing to the workforce. And also, I know they use TikTok. So we really want to enable our teams to have better conversations. So if and when they do wind up on TikTok, we won't be kind of like, oh, we didn't prepare for this. So here is a little bit about what we're going to do today. First, I want to start with a history lesson. All of us have been doing performance reviews for a really long time, and I don't think any of us really know where they started from. From there, we'll talk about a new approach. It's a little bit more elegant and a little bit more easy to manage, but it does take some time, right? We are learning a new flow and a new skill here. From there, we'll talk about ways to get your team to actually participate proactively so we can, help eliminate some of those surprises. I know in my early career, it really felt like a professional cat herder trying to get everyone to do their stuff. So now I kind of let my cats free range a little bit and take a bit of a different approach. So even though all of this feels a lot more relaxed and it doesn't look as formal, it won't feel as formal to your team, it is still a formal data-driven process. So we use information and performance reviews to make decisions. Let's be real. We use that information in compensation, promotions, recognitions. Plus, when we look at the data as a whole, we can see trends that help us better understand some of the nuances of the organization. So cool. Let's start at the very beginning, which is a very good place to start. And I do want to do a little bit of a content warning. We're going to touch on some good old American history, and it's not the best parts. Marcy wanted me to tell you that these thoughts are my own, developed after spending way too much time loving performance reviews. Gatheround and the Gatheround team should not be held responsible for the contents of this presentation. So here's where performance reviews were born from. First, good old America, exploitation. The first time we really see this idea of worker value compared to something is during the Industrial Revolution. And while it wasn't exclusive to, it was particularly prevalent in the southern United States. So this practice really did have an outsized impact on enslaved humans, exploited children. Yay! The next iteration we see is war. Of course, between World War I and World War II, the military begins to evaluate soldiers on their performance. They start dismissing low performers and rewarding those who meet expectations or show high potential. Any of that sound familiar? And then after the war, when all those men folks started to return home, they went back to their corporate lives in corporate America. The practices of performance appraisals became pretty popular. In the 1940s, by the late 1940s, about 60% of companies were engaging in some form of performance appraisals. And by the 1960s, we saw that at 90%. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. When I was reading this history, I was like, no. And then I spent 4 more days learning about this history. Cool. Since then, since the 1960s, we haven't changed a whole lot. In the last 75 years, we've turned these one-sided performance appraisals into performance reviews. Now they often leave space for like a self-reflection, maybe some self-advocacy, and many companies now include more perspectives when evaluating performance. This might look like something like peer feedback, 360 feedback, reviews from people outside of your direct manager. And there are a whole lot of new tools, Lattice, Flint, Culture Amp, 15.5. These all come to mind as really neat tools that can support your process. But again, they are just tools. Look, performance reviews are kind of rooted in awfulness. I get that. It probably explains a lot about how we feel about them. But they are still valuable. Like, I do love them. I can fix them. I can change them. They're super valuable, and we've evolved to have better intentions with our reviews. Most of the people leaders I talk to want time to dedicate for their team to celebrate accomplishments, to have developmental conversations, to really surface important information, not in a surprising way. We don't want to do that. And of course, we want to get those data points to make some of those really important decisions. So with that, tell me, we're going to do some quick breakout groups. Marcy's going to help me. Gatheround awesome feature number 2. In these breakout groups, I would love for folks to chat a little bit about your ultimate goal of performance reviews. And then when we come back, we'll have folks add it to the chat.
Hi. So I've got something that really resonated, not so much an ultimate goal for our performance review process. Something that came up in our conversation was how important simplicity is in terms of our performance review. I think, we as HR teams, we feel very empathetic towards the employee experience sometimes, and maybe we over architect things, make them more complicated than they need to be. But really, this is a process for employees at the end of the day. Like, yes, it does create insights for your business in terms of what talent performance is going through, but really, most of us would agree that this is for employees. So having a simple process is really like a golden ticket to a good one.
Oh, Josh, I'm going to head up your fan club, truly. David.
Yeah, I think. Wait, is this thing on? No, to follow up actually on what Josh was saying. I mean, I think simplicity, right, is huge, and trying to combine that with a level of thoughtfulness and the ability to actually take action on findings and feedback. That's the hardest part, right? Is making it enough, but not too much. I think, look, the ultimate goal is exactly that, to give people something that they can use as a tool for growth, for development, for success, and not just an administrative process to get through.
Thank you so much. That little fade out, eh? Oscar style.
So what we talk in our group, it is more along the lines of serving the employees in reaching better synergies and better development. And one of my key takeaways was actually the moment it was actually valuable and tangible was when it was a self-reflecting tool that people have to do the heavy lifting for themselves and not in a very evaluatory context.
Oh, I love that. I love this theme of simplicity. Great.
Yep.
Cool. Thank you, Stanish. And that little fade out. I wish I could give awards, like start handing out little gold trophies.
All right. And during our chats, I think the first thing that came up was just identifying training needs, at least for my org. That's one of the biggest things. So using those conversations to find out what do we need to do as an org to support these folks and get them where we need them to be. And then the other part was just talking about their individual goals and how they align with the organization's goals, and see how we can like map out development plans that also align with our goals. So those were the two things.
Amazing. Thank you so, so much. And it looks like you were our last sharer. Yeah. Oh, man. Great. Cool. So loved hearing all of that. Something that I really hearing, it's for the employees. We want to support their growth and development in a simple way. While all of that malarkey was happening between the Industrial Revolution and 1960s, we missed something. We literally just skimmed over it as a society. In 1927, enter Elton Mayo. Elton Mayo is an Australian-born psychologist, and he started doing a socioeconomic experiment that studied female employees of the Hawthorne Works factory of the Western Electric Company in Cicero, Illinois. What they did is they started measuring productivity, and they changed things about their day-to-day. They gave them flexible hours. They gave them better wages, rest periods. They changed lighting conditions, organizational structure, the degree of supervision, consultation to see what would affect how they did their jobs. Wild thing that they found, and I don't know why we just skipped over this, is performance wasn't tied to money. It wasn't always tied to recognition, but it was tied to the fact that someone was paying attention to the conditions of their work. Or, said another way, employees perform well when they're cared for. And I think like most of us can resonate with that, right? Like if I feel like I'm cared for, my manager, my leadership team, my company, yeah, thanks, Elton, genuinely cares for me, I'm going to show it back in trying to do well at the company. Which begs the question. So if we perform well when we are cared for, how can reviews show care? And so many of you already nailed it. Simple elegance. Okay, to story time. A few years ago, I was listening to some product leader talk about some new user experience, and the term elegant was used, just kind of thrown out there. So I started asking, like, why is this elegant? Say more, don't use that word because there are no fancy dresses involved. It was elegant because it was simple, it was intuitive, and it was easy to understand. Not always words you can use with performance reviews. So I started posing the question, what would elegant people operations look like? And I've been obsessed with this idea ever since. I think about it in process and programs and workflows. And here's really how it breaks down in a performance cycle. First thing, when I talk to people leaders about reviews and hear some frustrations, there are often some common themes. And I know these common themes because I have made the same mistakes. One, the process is built to perfection. And that resonates with me so much because I have also built textbook processes and they failed miserably. They were just too complex. They were too much, just too much. And when we went to the application of it and I started pushing this out to the team, the best thing I can equate it to, I was throwing the keys of a Ferrari to a team that hadn't learned how to drive a stick shift yet. It was too much, it was overwhelming, and it was intimidating. Plus, what the theory doesn't teach you, what my master's degree didn't teach me, folks didn't care. They just don't care about my program and my job because they have their own jobs to do. And I think if you talk to most of your employees, they would rather do their job really well than do your performance review. It might be a little harsh, but that's kind of a motivation I use to help create processes that get people excited to enjoy. So here's how I do it. 3 simple approaches or 3 ways to think about it. 1, we're going to talk about some building blocks. These are setting your great foundations for evaluations. Then we're going to talk about how to integrate it into the day-to-day and make it easy to engage with your team. And here are my building blocks. These are the 3 things of reviews that I really like bucket. First, and foundationally, is feedback. If your team isn't feeling great about giving and sharing feedback on a consistent basis, it's going to be real tough to implement a review process. You're going to really be strong-arming those managers to participate, like we heard in some of those breakout groups. Reviews, putting performance and context against goals and expectations. So if you don't have goals clarified or you don't have expectations written down somewhere, what are you reviewing people on? Like genuine question. What are you reviewing them on? If they don't know how they're supposed to perform, it's hard to review them. Now, once you get your feedback in and then you start a review process that feels good, then you can start evaluations. Then you can put a rating, a sentiment, a word to encapsulate and evaluate them. So to break that down a little bit more, I really do believe that reviews can happen without an evaluation. We don't have to cap it off with a 3 or a meets expectations or a nailing it. We can have a performance conversation that doesn't have a cap off. But when you get good at them, cap them off so you can use that data set. Cool. So here are your 3 building blocks. And here is how I like to think about using them. So for feedback, the who, colleagues, peers, and trusted advisors. If you don't know anything about me, if you don't know what the goals of the company are, if you don't know the values or the operating principles of the company, I don't care about your feedback. Sure, feedback is a gift, but it might be a fruitcake, and I don't really want a fruitcake. So you really want those trusted advisors giving you feedback. I am a huge fan of continuous feedback. We can lean on our friends over in engineering who have things like retros, or when you have an accomplishment, start asking for feedback then. You don't even need a formal process. You can have folks use Google Forms or just a Slack. But really, it's super helpful to share feedback when finishing an objective or hitting a milestone. And we ask for feedback from our peers because we want to understand how our work impacts the team. My marketing colleague doesn't know anything about my goals. They don't know much about my performance because they don't know what I do for a living. But what they do know is how I have collaborated with them, how I have created their work experience. From there, we go on to reviews. Look, hard line, I think they're between managers and direct reports. I don't want a peer reviewing me because exactly what I said, engineering doesn't know anything about HR. But my manager does. My manager not only knows what my role is, they know how my goals have been communicated. They know the struggles I've dealt with, and hopefully they've helped me remove roadblocks. Of course, reviews happen regularly on a formal basis and informally. Wild idea. You can just use the performance reviews questions as talking points for a one-on-one. This will help you talk about long-term growth and short-term goals. And then everyone's favorite, the evaluations. It helps drive leader alignment. Everyone's involved in evaluations. I'm a big fan of calibrations. Some folks judge, rate, evaluate softer or harder than others. So a calibration really brings together our leader alignment. And this happens with formal reviews. Once we've done a really formal review process, we have the opportunity to give a rating or an evaluation. And this is what really gives data to decisions and helps give context to the review. Ooh, okay. So quick poll, just so I know, how often are you doing reviews? Annually, semi-annually, or something else? Man, I love this polling feature. You can change the emojis as you like. So if you don't like them, there's no wrong answer here. If you don't do performance reviews, maybe just select your dream scenario. Cool. Looks like we've got most of our votes in. Most people doing semi-annually. I love semi-annually too. It will be biannually. Yeah, every 6 months. Nice, Cassidy. Cool. Great. Excellent. No matter what your answer is, when you're looking at your process, create bridges between those formal. This will help you address small issues quickly and eliminate some of those surprises. I advocate for using what you've already got in place. Hey, managers, repurpose a one-on-one once a month. Hey, individual contributors, demand you have this conversation. You are in charge of your career, so it's okay to help kick off those conversations too. And everyone knows the questions, so it's not a big deal. Let's see, a quick reflection, and then I think we're going to go into comments from here, but would love to hear, as you think about this beautiful review process that you've built, that may be textbook perfection, what's something you could take away from it? Maybe you could stop 360 reviews during the review process and have that spread out over time. Little snips over here, going with the plant thing, you know? Cool. So a little group share. We're going to do that same thing. I'm going to click play. And if you want to join the activity, go ahead and throw something in there. Click that join activity button. No one's joining. Oh, Cassidy. Yeah. Cassidy and one other. Amazing. Great.
Hey. So, am I live? Okay, good. So I just want to give a shout out to you, Kim. I love you. You are so cool. So thank you so much. And I love Gatheround. But I would say we're starting our performance review framework in a very small startup. We've done quarterly goal setting and feedback systems and those things leading up to kind of the performance review framework. So one thing that I would say that I can prune just from the ideas is doing it alone. So collaborate with stakeholders to make it really pop.
Love that. Love that. Fade it out, but what a great, let's see. And now we've got Ella.
Oh, here I am. Hi. As far as snipping things out, there's a couple of things that just come to mind immediately. Right now, we have like the second level supervisor approves all those evaluations and then they come to people experience. So there's just like a lot of chasing. Maybe that's not necessary. Maybe I can just read them. And my other thought is we are having goals as part of the evaluation process. And maybe we could like remove that and do goals as we go along throughout the year.
Oh, yeah. Well, things change, right? Oh my gosh, I love it. And up next is Josh. Man, gusto. Cool.
Hi, Kim. Long-time listener, second-time caller. Okay, so very generally speaking, I think we can trim formality, a little bit of the formality out of our reviews process. So we today run a biannual process, and that includes formal ratings every time, calibration processes, and that's getting kind of weighty and cumbersome on the business as we scale, right? When really, I think like we can do a performance rating calibrated one time a year, and then we can have more time for employees and their managers to really have the important performance conversations and development conversations, and that makes this program better for them, right?
Oh my gosh, I totally agree. And I think so many are saying such great things, like cut out some of that formality, empower your team. Shout out Greer, I think. Empower your team to be part of collaborating and development. Sick. No. I messed up. This is not what I wanted to do. Marcy, help. So
you're good. I stopped it.
Okay, great. Are we back to screen share then? Because I still see the submitted. Okay, great. Great. So we're going to talk about inspiring participation, and you've already got a little heads up on this. You can click that I'd rather not participate to clear it. But in my travels as a people leader and occasional cat herder, I started to figure out why people couldn't get their reviews done on time, why we were herding cats. It's not like they didn't know they were happening, but they happen twice a year. So when I started checking in on folks, 3 common themes really stood out. 1, timing. Q3, not great for sales, really great for engineering. So the timing was always a little tough. The benefits. No one knew what was in it for them other than maybe I'll get a promotion or a raise. We weren't doing a great job about talking about the benefits of having these conversations. And then the language. The words like literally. Oh, Josh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to trigger you. I know. Language. The words suck. Like and I say this as a HR person who writes very, very formally. We don't use great language. It's intimidating. So let's talk about what's in it for me. Prepare this question. Tell everyone. And you're going to have to answer it differently for executives, managers, and individuals. Your executive team, this is a cost-saving exercise because you're getting the chance to think about your organizational development. You're getting a chance to understand where your skills excel and where there are gaps. You can better plan your roadmap and your goals if you know what you've got working for you. For managers, this is a great time to build trust with their team and really develop their individuals. I always tell my managers this is a great way to work yourself out of a job so you can get promoted, but give time for investing in your team and practice having difficult conversations or strong performance conversations. And then individuals, this is about you. You are in charge of driving the car for your performance development. This is handing you the keys. So get in that front seat and go, go, go. Now let's talk about language. These all suck. These are terrible questions. A terrible rating meets expectations. And I know that these are all terrible because I use these. These were all featured in my performance reviews. And what I really loved as I was going through and preparing this, Marcy said, what makes a bad question? Because I've seen questions similar to these, but I found them really hard to answer. And that's it. That's what makes it a bad question. If your team is having issues answering the question, that is a problem. This takes a lot of brain power, especially if you're talking about your peers. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. The people who keep me sane day to day are amazing, and I'm not saying anything bad about them. So make sure your questions make sense and they're easy to answer. I try and do things like, hey, what's something I could do to be more impactful? What's a skill I could learn that would make your job easier, especially if we're close collaborators? So what constitutes a bad question? Employees don't want to answer them. They solicit uncomfortable feelings. I used to ask a question like, what's a value this person could focus growth and development on? And everyone loved it or everyone hated it. They were like, my whole team's great. And what I noticed is people would get workarounds. So if your value is frugality, people would be like, this person should be more frugal with their time and take more breaks. And I'm like, oh, okay. I see what you did there, because no one wants to rat out their friends. And all of this feels like my career, my colleague's career depends on it. Okay. So let's workshop it. We're coming close on time, so I'm not going to use the super cool Gatheround feature that you got a preview for it. But does anyone want to throw some bad language they've got into the chat? I see Katja. Maybe what you're doing for ratings. I don't love ratings. I'm just chatting while I wait for context in the chat. I don't love ratings. I don't love meets expectations. I don't love 3. I don't love things that make people feel bad. I use something called sentiments. So a 3 is nailing it. You are in the right role at the right time, crushing what we expect of you. But you're not ready for a promotion, and that's okay. Cool. We frame our peer feedback that way. Love that, Marcy. We're also running into the issue of stalling and answering questions that require too much thinking power. Cool. Using the word weakness. Oh, okay. Not great. Because we're humans, right? We just have something to learn. Cool. Y'all keep typing in. I'm going to keep looking at that. But to respect everyone's time, we're going to start talking about data-driven practices. I look at data in 3 ways. I think about the organizational data. That is data about people in the company. Not good enough. What does that mean? So organizational data might be your title, how long you've been at the company, your department, your manager, your level, things within the organization. Demographic data. How are you evaluating people in the organization based on who they are? That's your personal info, your identity information, age, race, gender, caregiver status, LGBTQIA community. That demographic info helps you understand some potential pockets for bias. And then programmatic. Are people playing your game? Are they engaging with your program? What does your participation look like? What does the distribution look like? I don't love a forced distribution, but it is helpful to understand, because if your bell curve is skewing high, we might want to get that back to center. So when you're thinking about this data, you have to capture it. You have to store it somewhere. If any of you are filling out Google Forms for your team so they can share their diversity data, stop it right now. Put it in your HRIS. It is a single source of truth information. And because that information is so sensitive, one, we need to know who it belongs to on an anonymous scale. The problem that I ran into with Google Forms, people leave organizations. So I didn't really know how my demographics were changing because it was like too anonymous. So store it in your HRIS. It's protected information. Treat that more importantly than you would a social security number. Respect that information. I like to set anonymity thresholds. So if there is an identification that is less than 10 or 5 or whatever your threshold is for the size of your company, I try and work with my ERGs and say, like, does this data look right? Like, this is a small population. Am I wiping them out? Am I hiding them when I'm trying to just respect them? So really work with your ERGs. Then explore that data to understand what's happening. Take your programs, cut it by gender, cut it by manager, cut it by department, and see how that data compares. Just some really interesting insights that you'll get. And then you can share those insights with the team. Share the trends, particularly right at the end of any decisions that you've made. Hey, here's how our performance review process went. Here was the average rating. Here was our distribution. Here's how many promotions came. All of that is interesting for people to know, and they care because it sets expectations for future cycles. So here's some of just my favorites. I like to do the rating trends. I like to see what the distribution is. Again, I do not force it. I want to look at it 3 to 4 cycles before I start trying to nudge it one way or the other. Can we use more about the capstones? Yes, I will if we have time. 1 second. Averages across demographics, teams, levels, see all of that. Participation rates and historical comparison. If you're running the same data set over and over again, how did it look a while ago? What has changed, particularly across some of these cuts? Just really interesting. And again, sharing is caring. What insights are you sharing with reviews? How are you sharing them? Because we're short on time, I am going to address Ella's question. Can we hear more about the capstones you use? Yeah, so this came from talking with an engineering leader, and I was trying to explain that a 3 wasn't bad and a meets expectations was not a C grade. And I said, look, they're basically fucking nailing it. Like, what more do you want from me? And he was like, I want to say that. I just want to say that they're nailing it. And I was like, oh. So that was really helpful. And what I started to do was just walk through in very human language what I meant, what I intended these evaluations to inspire, to what was the sentiment of the review. And numbers don't work because people aren't numbers and we're not Yelp reviews, and meets expectations feels gross when you've worked really hard. So really like think about, how can this sentiment, what can I say to cap off this review that resonates well? We're already doing this, so I'm just going to ask me into the questions. Tiffany, what is your take on how team and company success should impact the review? What a great question. I think you're reviewing the individual against the expectations set for their role. Now, if I am reviewing on a whole, a team, and they are all being rated very, very highly, kind of on the top end of that spectrum, maybe we're talking about rewards, recognitions, promotions, but the team has not hit a single goal, I have questions. And I'm just going to pressure test them with the managers. Like, but we didn't hit our rev goal. Why do you think your sales team is so great? We didn't hit our reach out metrics, or we didn't hit this. Why is this team so great? One, the goals might be out of whack. It's very true. Or we might have a manager who really loves their team, and that's awesome too, but we do need to do some coaching. So I do offer a Review Suck playbook. Right now it's $100, but I'm offering a 10% off with the code GATHER. If you want to dive deeper into things like sentiments instead of ratings, or if you want to have just a pre-done, ready to go performance management plan, it's in there. Marcy is going to send out an email after this with all of the information. Please connect with me on LinkedIn if we haven't already. I post daily cringe, and I'm addicted to LinkedIn. It's fine. Oh my gosh, Samantha, you're amazing. Tiffany, you're great. Cool. Questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, wants, desires.
I also just enabled camera and mic for everyone. So if you want to turn on your mic and just ask Kim a question audibly, you're more than welcome to. More Kim, agree.
Now available to come talk to your company too.